Good evening and thanks for joining us. This is NTD Business and I'm Paul Graney. A Trump campaign attorney prepares to file an election lawsuit in Nevada. We have details on some of the fraud allegations. A Stop the Steal rally was held today in Georgia. Attorneys Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell spoke and answered questions. Hewlett-Packard says goodbye to California. The Silicon Valley original is moving its headquarters to Texas. And the New York bar owner gets arrested for defying lockdown orders. We talked to him after he was released earlier today. President Trump just made a new statement about alleged voter fraud in the 2020 election. Here's what he had to say.
Thank you. This may be the most important speech I've ever made. I want to provide an update on our ongoing efforts to expose the tremendous voter fraud and irregularities which took place during the ridiculously long November 3rd elections. We used to have what was called Election Day. Now we have election days, weeks and months, and lots of bad things happened during this ridiculous period of time, especially when you have to prove almost nothing to exercise our greatest privilege, the right to vote. As president, I have no higher duty than to defend the laws and the Constitution of the United States. That is why I am determined to protect our election system, which is now under coordinated assault and siege. For months leading up to the presidential election, we were warned that we should not declare a premature victory. We were told repeatedly that it would take weeks, if not months, to determine the winner, to count the absentee ballots, and to verify the results. My opponent was told to stay away from the election. Don't campaign. We don't need you. We've got it. This election is done. In fact, they were acting like they already knew what the outcome was going to be. They had it covered, and perhaps they did, very sadly for our country. It was all very, very strange. Within days after the election, we witnessed an orchestrated effort to anoint a winner, even while many key states were still being counted. The constitutional process must be allowed to continue. We are going to defend the honesty of the vote by ensuring that every legal ballot is counted and that no illegal ballot is counted. This is not just about honoring the votes of 74 million Americans who voted for me. It's about ensuring that Americans can have faith in this election and in all future elections.
Republican candidates in the Minnesota elections filed a lawsuit against the Minnesota Secretary of State, Steve Simon. They say he made an election-related change without the approval of the state legislature. Going back to August, Simon just let voters skip out on getting a witness to fill out absentee ballots. Now the Republicans want the ballots inspected. And a Trump campaign attorney alleges that tens of thousands of people voted twice in Nevada. That's enough to erase Joe Biden's lead in the state. He says their team will file a lawsuit there on Thursday.
Trump attorney Jesse Binnall claims there were thousands and thousands of cases of voter fraud in Nevada alone. He told Fox Business, "We have instances, for instance, of 40,000 plus people who have voted twice in the election." He also said, "We have data showing that people who are on the record as having voted by mail didn't even receive ballots and say that they didn't vote." The host asked about ballots being filled out in a Biden-Harris van. Binnall confirmed the story. He said a Clark County poll worker saw people filling out ballots and putting them in envelopes to be submitted later. He said, "We're not talking about one or two. We're talking about dozens of ballots that she saw alone, and they even tried to form a human wall to try to block her view when she was walking by and saw this." Binnall says they have a witness who claims the Postal Service was also involved in election fraud. He said, "We have a whistleblower that came forward and told us about a postal meeting where they told people to deliver ballots to undeliverable addresses, things that have resulted in ballots being strewn all over and littered all across Las Vegas, Nevada." Binnall claims the post office refuses to let those involved be deposed. The judge scheduled the hearing for Thursday afternoon.
And two committees in the Georgia State Senate will hold hearings on Thursday. Both were convened entirely by Republican lawmakers. They say the purpose is to evaluate the election process to ensure the integrity of Georgia's voting process. Georgia, of course, in the middle of a machine recount at the moment, is facing a tight deadline by midnight tonight. The state's top election official says Fulton County is seeing issues and that it cut corners during the state's second recount. Georgia will be the fourth state to hold election-related hearings in recent days. Sidney Powell and Lynn Woods spoke at a Stop the Steal rally today in Georgia. Powell talked about how people cheated, how election results weren't valid, and how the Georgia runoff election should be dealt with, in her words.
There are lots of people that got cheated, and it went even local races. Lots of congressional seats, Senate seats. I agree, there should not be a runoff, certainly not on Dominion machines.
Attorney Lynn Wood also spoke at the event. He's filed a lawsuit in Georgia about over alleged voter fraud.
I promise this, and I know you, the people, will join me in promising. We're going to fight like a Flynn. Fight like a Flynn. And when we do, and we will, we'll fight like a Flynn.
And of course related to Michael Flynn, who the president just pardoned this week. The Georgia State Representative Vernon Jones also spoke. He said he supports a special session in the Georgia General House Assembly.
And I'm not just doing it for Republicans, I'm doing it for Democrats, I'm doing it for every single person who lives in the state of Georgia. This is not partisan. We are America.
Behind the scenes, there are signs the election is becoming increasingly hostile. The Trump campaign today condemned threats reportedly made against a Dominion tech worker accused of fraud. It also condemned remarks by a Trump campaign lawyer who said, perhaps tongue-in-cheek, that a former DHS official should be shot for saying the election was the most secure in history. The Trump campaign said today that no one should engage in threats or violence, and if that has happened, we condemn it fully. It comes after Sidney Powell said a witness to alleged voter fraud was beaten and sent to the hospital. She says other witnesses have been threatened too.
Their lives have been threatened. One witness we know of got beaten up and is in the hospital. There have been all kinds of repercussions against people who have come forward to tell the truth.
And President Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, will testify in front of the Michigan State House from 6 p.m. this evening. We have live coverage of it here on NTD. Michigan House Speaker Lee Chatfield says Giuliani will testify on the election fraud allegations. He says the issue should matter to both Republicans and Democrats. He says that even though Michigan's vote has been certified, the inquiry into election fraud will continue. The state's House Oversight Committee wants to know if there is proof of fraud. The Republican didn't say if the Republican legislators would take action on sending its own electors to the Electoral College over allegations of the fraud. He said that it's important, though, to ensure fair elections now and to guard against future fraud. And Senator Ted Cruz is urging the U.S. Supreme Court to take up a Republican challenge in Pennsylvania. He says normally the Supreme Court would stay out of election disputes, but these aren't ordinary times. And he says that many Americans unfortunately believe the election was rigged. Cruz says the Pennsylvania lawsuit raises serious legal issues, and by taking up the case on an emergency basis, the nation's highest court would help restore confidence in America's democracy. The case relates to a Pennsylvania lawsuit filed by Republicans. It claims that a law passed in 2019 known as the Act 77 violated the Pennsylvania state constitution by allowing universal mail-in voting. The state Supreme Court dismissed the case. The Republicans appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. And in business news, the S&P 500 reached another record high today, but the Nasdaq dipped. At closing, the Dow rose about 60 points, or 0.2%. S&P 500 gained over 6 points, or 0.18%. The Nasdaq slipped nearly 6 points, or 0.05%. ADP data today shows that private payrolls increased less than expected last month. The Federal Reserve's Beige Book report also says there's little or no growth in 4 of the 12 of the central bank districts, and only modest growth elsewhere in recent weeks. And another tech company is leaving Silicon Valley for Texas. Hewlett-Packard is moving its headquarters to Houston, which they say offers attractive recruitment market.
Hewlett-Packard Enterprises is making Texas its new home. It's currently making a new state-of-the-art headquarters in Houston. Texas offers cheaper real estate, which would save the company money, and the recruitment market is also less competitive. It says there will be no job losses as part of the move, and that it will keep its San Jose campus. Texas Governor Greg Abbott celebrated the news. He wrote on Twitter, "Welcome to Texas, jobs, jobs, jobs." Abbott has been proactively trying to bring businesses to Texas. Hewlett-Packard, now known as HPE, was formed in a Palo Alto garage in 1939. That garage is an historic landmark that has a plaque on it saying birthplace of Silicon Valley. President of Pund IT Incorporated told the Wall Street Journal, "It's a sad day for Silicon Valley and hopefully a bright day for HPE and its shareholders. HPE is a company that needs to seek cost savings wherever it can find them." Its financial fourth quarter net income was $157 million. Its shares are down 29% since the beginning of the year. Dropbox may soon announce a move to Texas as well.
And Salesforce has agreed to buy workplace messaging app Slack. It's actually Salesforce's biggest deal yet, and it's betting remote work is here to stay.
Salesforce has agreed to buy workplace messaging app Slack for just over $27 billion. It marks the biggest deal made by the cloud computing giant and furthers its rivalry with Microsoft.
Consolidation cloud is continuing, and I think this is really something that's going to have ramifications for years to come as you're seeing the cloud wars heating up between Salesforce and Microsoft.
In buying Slack, US firm Salesforce has bet remote working will be here for a long while yet. The deal, one of the biggest tech mergers in recent years, allows Salesforce to provide a unified platform for businesses, where employees, customers and partners can connect with each other and the apps they use. For Slack, the deal comes as it struggles to fully capitalize on the switch to remote working seen during the global health crisis. The app has proven popular with businesses over the last few years. It effectively changed workplace communications by focusing on real-time messaging that could be broken into conversations with groups. It proved a more versatile platform than email. But the messaging style that Slack helped to build has become a highly competitive space. Microsoft has aggressively promoted its similar Teams product with integrated video and voice calling. It's also bundled Teams with many of its Office software packages, a big attraction for companies that want to save costs.
Britain approved Pfizer's CCP virus vaccine for use on Wednesday. The UK says it will now start rolling it out from early next week.
Britain became the first country in the world to approve a coronavirus vaccine made by Pfizer-BioNTech on Wednesday. The government said it will be rolled out across the UK from early next week. Britain's vaccine committee will decide which priority groups get the jab first. The likeliest candidates are care home residents, health and care staff, the elderly, and people who are clinically very vulnerable. British Health Minister Matt Hancock said he expects to have millions of doses of the vaccine available by the end of the year. But he admitted distributing the vaccine could be a challenge, when it must be kept at -70°C, the same temperature as an Antarctic winter. Pfizer and BioNTech and their US rival Moderna have reported successful early trial results. Pfizer now believes more approvals from other regulators are on the way. It's applied for clearance from the US and EU, with decisions expected in December.
Still to come this evening. The top Senate Republican says there may be hope for another virus relief package this year. He says he's talking to the White House to make sure it's something the president will sign. We'll take a look at some names on Joe Biden's transition team. Several are from a consulting firm with deep ties to China. That and more after the break.
What does it mean to devote your life to the truth? Does it mean investigating communist subversion here in America? Does it mean exposing the deadly fentanyl crisis in the Midwest? for spending late nights and covering deep government corruption? Does it mean persevering over 20 years, even after 4 masked men set one of our printing presses on fire last year? Because at a time when America's traditional values are under attack, it's the responsibility of righteous journalists to uphold truth and tradition.
The mayor of San Francisco was caught dining with others at a lavish restaurant, despite putting residents of her city under strict virus lockdown measures. San Francisco Mayor London Breed dined at the lavish French Laundry. She's one of the many California officials who've been caught out not complying with her own CCP virus restriction rules. California Governor Gavin Newsom was also criticized for dining at the French Laundry on November 7th. Breed joined 7 other people to celebrate a socialite's 60th birthday. It was one day after Newsom joined a larger celebration there. The restaurant is in the Napa Valley. Residents are also questioning why the mayor left her county to dine despite state advisories against travel. And the top Senate Republican says they're in talks with the White House on a new relief package. He says he believes President Trump will sign it into law.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said on Tuesday he's in discussions with the White House on a new targeted CCP virus relief package.
And I like to remind everybody that the way you get a result is you have to have a presidential signature. So I felt the first thing we needed to do was to find out what the president would in fact sign. We believe we've got the answer to that. We're vetting that on our side.
McConnell said he and Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin discussed what they thought Trump would accept. Proposals are being circulated to Senate Republicans for feedback. According to a draft copy obtained by Axios, it includes more funding for the Small Business Paycheck Protection Program and liability protection. It also includes a loan to the U.S. Postal Service, funding to get students back in school, and funding for vaccines. It doesn't include more stimulus checks, rental assistance, or state and local funding. Meanwhile, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi gave McConnell new ideas for reaching a compromise. Schumer refused to give details during a press conference, calling it a private proposal to help us move the ball forward. McConnell says there are also expectations for an additional relief package early next year.
The House is expected to vote today on restricting Chinese firms listed on American exchanges. The goal is to make sure Chinese firms have to comply with the same requirements as American firms. Right now, China doesn't allow U.S. inspectors to audit Chinese companies traded here in the States. The bill would also require foreign companies to certify that they aren't controlled by a foreign government. If passed, it could see giants like Alibaba and Baidu kicked off American stock markets. The Senate already passed the bill back in May. It will now need 2/3 majority to pass in the House. And Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden released the names of his transition review team in early November. Several of the State Department picks are documented consultants to the Chinese Communist Party.
Joe Biden's transition review team includes several lobbyists and consultants from Albright Stonebridge Group, or ASG. The consulting firm has links to the Chinese regime and employs former Chinese officials. 3 of Biden's State Department transition review team come from ASG, including team leader Linda Thomas Greenfield. Her profile said she led the firm's Africa practice. It was taken down sometime after Biden named her part of his team. Biden also picked her to be U.S. ambassador to the UN. During the Obama administration, she was the top diplomat overseeing African affairs. President Trump fired her shortly after he took office. 2 other ASG members on Biden's State Department team are Sumona Guha and Roberta Jacobson. And Biden chose ASG member Elizabeth Littlefield to lead his International Development Transition Team. The group includes the U.S. Agency for International Development and the related Finance Corporation. ASG is Madeleine Albright's consulting firm. She was Secretary of State under Bill Clinton, and she currently chairs the company. According to ASG's website, the firm's largest single country practice is in China. One of ASG's China team leaders is Jin Ligang. He's a Chinese Communist Party member and former senior Chinese government official. Other ASG members who have worked for the Chinese regime include Dai Yunlo, Jia Mingru, Mu Lan, and Harry Hu. The National Pulse first reported the news that Biden tapped ASG members for his transition review team.
Still to come this evening. Shopping districts around the world turn on their Christmas lights. We'll take a look at some of the pretty impressive displays in the United States and Europe. And Target kicks off its gift card sale this weekend. We have the details on how you can get the discount. That and more after the break.
He ascended to the throne during the most turbulent times in the Joseon dynasty. Despite that, he treated his people well, had great ambitions, and led the country towards a new renaissance. That eventually earned him the title as one of the wisest kings in Korean history. Lee Sun on NTD America.
This season, take an incredible journey through 5,000 years of culture with Shen Yun. Discover why people are calling Shen Yun a visual feast, a pleasure to the ear, an epic tale, a must-see. Shen Yun, an all-new production every year.
Target's annual gift card sale kicks off this weekend, but there'll be some changes this year. The biggest change, you now have to be a member of Target's loyalty program to get the 10% discount. Also, this year's sale will last 2 days instead of just one. You can buy the store gift cards on Saturday and Sunday in store and online, but they're only for Target gift cards and the discount can only be used for one transaction. And shoppers on Walmart.com who pay $98 per year membership fee will get free shipping on orders of any size starting Friday. It's dropping its previous requirement of $35. Walmart launched this membership service called Walmart Plus about 2 months ago. The company hopes to compete with Amazon Prime's membership program. Walmart Plus members receive free next day and 2-day shipping on non-perishable items shipped by Walmart, no matter the purchase amount. The move builds on the retailer's pledge to keep adding benefits to membership program. But delivery from Walmart's brick-and-mortar stores for basic items like fresh groceries will still carry the $35 minimum. And cities and shopping districts around the world are turning on their Christmas lights. Beverly Hills lit up mannequins for a fashion show, and in Europe, capital cities lit up trees and storefronts. Take a look.
You usually find mannequins inside the store, but this festive-looking lady on Rodeo Drive has been lit up especially for the holiday season. The Beverly Hills luxury shopping district hopes the display will bring some Christmas cheer and get people out to shop. Most of California is under the strictest virus rules, with retail businesses at limited capacity and indoor dining banned. Residents are also subject to a 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew. Meanwhile, in Europe, the Christmas lights have been turned on at Berlin's famous shopping boulevard. 550 lights illuminate the area, but this year they were switched on without a ceremony. But as people continue to social distance in Germany, there are fewer shoppers in the stores in what is traditionally the busiest time of year. In France, stores on the Champs-Élysées have taken a hit due to the drop in tourism. However, festive lights still adorn Paris this year. As the country's lockdown eases and shops start reopening, stores like Dior and Louis Vuitton are trying to regain some of their massive losses. And in the Belgian capital Brussels, a 59-foot tall Christmas tree decorates the main city square. But the annual Christmas market has been canceled. The tree weighs 5 tons and it took 9 hours to decorate, with the equivalent of over half a mile of Christmas tinsel and 250 flower-shaped lights, symbols of revival.
That's the latest business updates for today. You can catch the Michigan election fraud hearing from 6 p.m. though. For NTD Business, that's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.